I'm just going to talk about history pretty much, not much technology, no science, and that thing. I'm just going to talk about basically the pioneer hatchery program that started in British Columbia. One of the biggest events that ever happened was the Hell's Gate slide, how the Pacific Salmon Commission came in and saved the day, and then how we got the salmon enhancement program going. A little bit of background, fertilization type. So the technology for fish culture really wasn't developed until about the 1850s. I've got a book from 1828 by Sir Humphrey Davies, kind of a famous guy, that talks about fish culture. And if you followed that book, you'd kill every fish. So by about 1850, well actually mid-1860s, Seth Green in the United States and Samuel Wilmot in Canada both had operating salmonid hatcheries on their farms. And those developed into kind of a fad in the late 1860s into the 1870s. American Fish Culture Association, which is the American Fisheries Society now, was formed. They wanted to do lots of hatcheries, and they figured the hatchery was the panacea to saving the terribly declining fisheries. And once they started fishing both on the Atlantic coast and the Pacific coast. So BC joined Canada in 1871, and by 1875 there were 5 hatcheries on the east coast, salmonid hatcheries. And by 1878, the British Columbians were saying, well, why don't we have a hatchery? Let's get a hatchery out here. And so the superintendent of fish culture in Ottawa told the supervisor of fisheries in British Columbia, I want you to look into a hatchery location and give us some suggestions. And this happened several years in a row because the guy kept writing back, well, I'd love to, but I don't know anything about hatcheries. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And so if you send somebody out here who knows something about hatcheries, I'd be happy to accommodate you. So in 1873, they did send someone out, Thomas Mowat, who happened to be the son of the Rescadouche hatchery manager who'd been working in the hatchery for 3 or 4 years. He came out and set up the first hatchery in British Columbia. And this was it. It was located basically right underneath the Port Mann Bridge that you take out coming out of Vancouver, about 100 meters off to one side on a little creek called Bonaccord Creek. It was actually established in 1883. Just a local fish cannery that had that site said, well, listen, I've got a lot of property. You guys can have this, and it's got a creek on it. So that donated the land to the federal government. And a crew was brought in. They built a dam in the foreground, a flume that led to a building, a 2-story building that was filled with troughs, and that was a hatchery. They went out and caught there's millions of salmon going up the river in the middle of the summer. They went out and caught a bunch of fish and held them in pens on the side of on the side there, which is now all railway property. And they all died. So they went out and caught a whole bunch more, and they held them in containers that were fed by the creek, and they all died. And and eventually, by 1884, the reason why I said it started in 1884, because that year they actually went out to spawning grounds and caught fish on spawning grounds, and that kind of worked better. The fish were actually right, because of course fish migrating through the Lower Fraser River in July are sometimes not going to spawn for several months. So that was the operation. Thanks, Jim. And so I'll just talk a little bit about fish culture techniques in those days. They really knew nothing, as John had said earlier, and so they made an awful lot of mistakes, but it's absolutely incredible that they had the success that they did. In terms of adult capture, not rocket science, they built weirs or netted rivers or built traps and caught their adults. As far as egg take goes, egg takes were normally taken on site. They usually used the wet method, which was add water or put some water in a pan, add some eggs, add some milk, and hope that the milk gets there before it gets to the micropore before and it took almost to 1900, 25 years before they figured out that the dry method was better, got a much higher fertilization rate. And they pretty much always squeezed their fish probably into the 1920s. They didn't slice them open and kill them. They didn't know really that all Pacific salmon died. So it was But they wash their eggs and so on. All of the hatcheries looked like this. They were all trays with baskets. The basket is on the tray in the bottom right there. And this is several hatcheries. They all look like this inside, and this is transporting the eggs for the Bonacorda hatchery, they finally realized that their best place to get broodstock or get eggs was on the Harrison River, just over the hill here. And so they had to, so this is, an hour and a half drive from Portland in a modern car, and they had to come up here, take all their eggs and ship them and take them by boat back to the Bonacorda. So that what I think is remarkable, other than the stupidity of that, is the incredible dedication of these people. And the work ethic is just, when you're reading the reports, the work ethic just comes out loud and clear. These people really cared. They worked their butts off. It was really quite fantastic. And releasing the fish, they mostly released either just eggs that were eyed, and they just go and spread them out into creeks, or they would release alevins, what they called sack fry, or they just called fry. Often in the 1800s, you didn't know whether fry was a sack fry or a swim-up fry. But anyway, these little wee fish, so we wouldn't expect a whole lot of survival from these. And they use these milk cans to transport fish. This is one technique that was developed, which was planting eggs in a box with gravel. So you fill the gravel partly with box, partly with eggs. Dig a space in the creek, and the box comes apart, and you pull these panels out, and the gravel is left. And obviously extremely labor intensive. Not really used that much, but used in small creeks and so on. A kind of a cute idea, like our old incubation boxes, but not going to make much impact on the fisheries. And they did get into rearing probably after 1910, 1915. There were people started to rear fish and produce. And I wouldn't say they produced smolts, but they produced fed fry. The one here with the wooden raceways, the wood-lined raceways, it kind of looked like Burroughs ponds, which is kind of interesting, or whatever the precursor to the Burroughs ponds was. This is a Taft hatchery near Sycamores in Shuswap Lake. But normally it was just these earthen ponds like that. That's at Harrison here. So here are the hatcheries that were built in British Columbia, the Bonacorda from 1884, and then Granite Creek, and the two with the stars were not Sockeye hatcheries, but everybody else was. And this is Granite Creek. You've seen Bonacorda. This is Granite Creek on beautiful Shuswap Lake, at my summer home. Gorgeous location, lovely big building, massive production from a variety of Shuswap Lake stocks, including the famous Adams River. This is the Harrison Lake hatchery. If you go out the door here, out to the beach, look across the lake, and if it were 1914 or 1920, you would see this building well across the lake over at Green Point. This beautiful 3-story whitewashed building right nearby. And if you went further up Harrison Lake and through Lillooet Lake and up into the Birkenhead River, they built this. This hatchery was built up near Pemberton, which is the top end of Lillooet Lake. And interesting, this is I think my only story, is that the reason that this was built outside, you see all these troughs were put outside initially on Owl Creek, was because they were waiting for a mill to be delivered so that they could understand this was just forest, right? And you get a crew of people that go into this place, it's virgin forest, they cut down trees, they mill the lumber, they build everything. It was really quite fantastic. Out in a place where, there's no supplies. It would take you a week to get there from anywhere. And so really quite amazing. So the mill was late coming over the mountains over the Duffy Lake Road. So they they just used chainsaws to build a bunch of troughs to first, just so that they could do the eggs, and then when the mill arrived, then they built the building and put the eggs into it. Really amazing dedication. This is on Seton Lake. There's Seton Lake with this was run by the provincial government, not the federal government, but another spectacular location. And if you're on the tour on Thursday, you'll drive by this place. This was the Cultus Lake Hatchery, which is now the little community center at Cultus Lake. But our laboratory in both of those pictures is just to the right of the pictures where the Cultus Lake lab is, where Dan Selby works. So this is the production from the hatchery in eggs for all of the province. You can see that Pemberton was sometimes did up to 45 million eggs. Big production numbers, usually somewhere in the range of 5 million to 20 million for these hatcheries around the province. I'll just reduce it to just the Fraser ones. You can see on the bottom left that that's the Fraser hatchery at Bonaccord, and you see it kind of got going, and by 1910 it had dropped off because it was a crappy location, and these other hatcheries were much better, and they did other species for a couple of years, and then they just abandoned the hatchery. But that's the Fraser total, and then this is the total for all the Sockeye hatcheries in British Columbia. And you notice that what happened here was by an act of Parliament based on a report done by the research scientists at Cultus Lake Lab. They wrote a report that basically said, all of this hatchery work, we don't have good evidence that it's actually helping that much. So by order in council of the Canadian Parliament, on December 31st, 1937, they were all shut. And that was it for Sockeye Enhancement in British Columbia. Thank you very much. In the meantime, in that period, in 1913, actually since early 1880s, when railways started to be built through the Fraser Canyon, the railway on the picture on the right, the left is 1897. The Canadian Pacific Railway, you can see up on the bank to the left. It's the right bank of the river on the left. And there's just a mule trail on the other side of the river. When they were building the railway, and in construction of all of those, people would blast and dump all the rock into the river. So there's been a fair amount of rock dumped into the canyon. Before the disaster of 1913, when the building the railway on the other bank, they dumped a lot of rock in, and then on February 1914, there was a blast and a huge landslide that you can see. If you look at the water of the river on the picture on the left, you can see that on the left side there's calmish water, there's nice water. And if you look at the river on the lower picture, it's a sluice, it's a flume going through the canyon, through the Hell's Gate, and no fish could pass that because of all that rock that had been dumped on the right side. So that's the location of Hell's Gate, so kind of a major impact on the Fraser River system. It's down near the bottom, it's near the outlet. It's only, there's an awful lot of Fraser River system upstream of Hell's Gate. And mind you, this system, the Harrison and the Lillooet and so on, are downstream, so there were a few good-sized stocks downstream, and they did better. So for Hell's Gate, they built a wooden flume in 1913, and by hand, one fish at a time, put them up into this flume so they could get by the obstruction. But of course, this isn't, you're not going to be able to do this for the millions of fish that would otherwise be passing. They did a lot of blasting. They took out hundreds of thousands of tons of rock, and over a couple of years, by 1915, they figured that they'd done all that they could and kind of gave up. And that's what happened to the catch. The catch was over 30 million for Fraser River sockeye and dropped down to, a couple of million after the slide, when the impacts were finally shown. So then everybody sat around on their thumbs for 24 years, The problem was that the Americans were getting about 60+% of the catch when the slide happened. And so Canada didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money just to restore a US-dominated fishery. The Americans wanted to get perpetual rights to be able to harvest Fraser River sockeye, so they didn't want to agree to spend any money until they could get those rights. And it all kind of worked out after 24 years, and they started negotiating, and fishway construction started in 1944, and we have those fishways. The design of the fishery took a few years. They built a test flume in the University of Washington, and tried all sorts of different configurations and so on, and eventually ended up with most of them being vertical slot fishways, and there's a couple other little ones in there. I think there's 7 fishways at Hell's Gate, and it works pretty well now, though the river is still not back to there's a lot of other places on the river where there's still an awful lot of rock that was dumped by the railway construction, house-size rocks that still are blocking flow. But then the commission built some other fishways in other places in the province, and which helped fish passage, which was great. And they also built spawning channels. Spawning channel technology kind of came in with Jones Creek, built by the Fisheries and Oceans, just across the river, across the Fraser from here, in the 1950s. And that technology was vastly improved by the Salmon Commission, and they built a bunch of channels, and then Fisheries and Oceans built channels in the Sockeye channels in northern British Columbia on the Babine system. And then in 1986, basically, those channels were handed over to the Salmon Enhancement Program. And so then Fisheries and Oceans started up this Salmon Enhancement Program, the comprehensive program. They included community involvement, major fish facilities, community facilities, and habitat restoration that is still going today. We produce a fair number of fish. They make a fairly significant contribution to our fisheries, but they're pretty much all Chinook, coho, and chum salmon hatcheries. Our production of sockeye salmon is mainly from the channels, the spawning channels, and a couple of small projects that are where we produce a few million fish for conservation purposes or whatever for sockeye. So here's a list of this Salmon Enhancement Program major facilities. The ones with the stars have sockeye in them. Not much. The red ones are closed, and the blue one was sold to the province for $1. And here's the set community hatcheries. Again, the red ones are closed, but I'm not quite sure whether anybody rears sockeye. The other program, part of the set program, is the lake enrichment program, and really we've only got Great Central Lake left. It was the original lake enrichment project in the world, and it's still going, and it's still extremely successful. All of the ones in small print are really research projects on small lakes that were done fertilized for a few years to understand more about the limnology. But some of the other ones still have a lot of potential if we can kind of get it right, and so that's and this shows the number of years of operation in those projects. So in SEP, and this applies to all species, but it certainly applies to sockeye salmon, we have a pathological fear of pathogens, and I thought it was funny, and that's all that matters. In standard fish culture procedures, but sockeye have a real. So when we started SEP, it was basically we're not going to do sockeye culture because of the experience with IHN being educated to the other species in the Columbia River in the 60s and 70s. And so when we started the Salmon Enhancement Program in the late 70s, that was a rule for us that we've pretty much maintained. And certainly no co-culture, and recently we've only got a couple of culture facilities that are isolated, that are quarantined essentially from anything else because of our fully justified fear of IHM, even Alaskan protocols. The future for SEP and for Sockeye is, I think there's lots of opportunities for more things to do with Sockeye, and we have to be cautious if it involves savage culture. Thank you very much.